The shuttle bay doors hissed open, and Lily Wade stepped onto the polished floor of Galactic Academy Station. She carried a single bag over her shoulder and wore the standard Academy uniform that had been sent to Earth 3 weeks prior. Around her, dozens of alien species moved through the massive arrival hall. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of something that shimmered like liquid metal. Lily had studied the orientation materials during her journey from Earth. She knew the rules, the expectations, and the basic biology of her future classmates. What the materials hadn't prepared her for was the stairs. Everywhere she walked, conversation stopped. Eyes of various colors and numbers tracked her movement. She was the first human to attend Galactic Academy in over a decade. The registration process was quick. A floating mechanical assistant scanned her identification chip and assigned her to Advanced Physics, Section 7. The dormitory wing was on level 42. Her first class started in 1 standard hour. Lily found her quarters without trouble. The room was small but functional, with a sleeping platform, a study terminal, and a viewport that showed the endless stars beyond the station. She unpacked her belongings in silence, changed into fresh clothes, and reviewed her class schedule one more time. Advanced Physics was taught by Professor Zelthrin, a Vaxian known for strict standards and brilliant lectures. The classroom was located in the academic wing, a 20-minute walk through corridors filled with students from across the galaxy. When Lily entered the classroom, she was early. Only a handful of students had arrived. She chose a seat in the middle row, away from the windows but with a clear view of the main display board. The desk adjusted automatically to her height, and the interface lit up with a soft blue glow. Other students filed in gradually. Lily noticed their reactions. Some glanced at her with curiosity. Others whispered to their neighbors. A few kept their distance, as if proximity to a human might be dangerous. Then Torvik entered. He was massive even by Krelian standards. His body was covered in thick, overlapping armor plates that were a deep purple color. 4 arms hung at his sides, each ending in taloned hands. His head was broad and flat, with multiple eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern. When he moved, his footsteps made heavy thuds against the floor. Torvik scanned the room with his primary eyes. When his gaze landed on Lily, something shifted in his expression. He changed direction and walked directly toward her row. 3 other students were sitting near Lily. They quickly gathered their belongings and moved to different seats. Within seconds, the entire row was empty except for Lily. Torvik sat down 1 desk away from her. The furniture groaned under his weight. "A human," he said. His voice was deep and rasping, like stones grinding together. "I have never seen one in person before." Lily didn't respond. She kept her eyes on her interface, pulling up the course syllabus. "They say your world is dangerous," Torvik continued. "Class 12 Deathworld. Very impressive classification." Still Lily said nothing. "But looking at you, I find that difficult to believe." Torvik leaned closer. His breath smelled like sulfur. "You're so small. So fragile. Your bones must be like glass. Your skin looks like it would tear from a gentle touch." Around the classroom, other students were watching now. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed curious about what would happen next. No one intervened. "I wonder," Torvik said, extending 1 taloned finger toward Lily's arm, "how much pressure it would take to—" "Please don't touch me," Lily said quietly. Her eyes remained on her screen. Torvik pulled his hand back, but he was smiling now. At least, his mandibles were spread in what passed for a Krelian smile. "Oh, it speaks," he said. "And so politely. Tell me, human, do all of your kind beg so sweetly?" Professor Zelthrin entered the classroom before Lily could respond. The professor was a Vaxian, tall and thin with crystalline skin that refracted light in rainbow patterns. He moved to the front of the room and activated the main display. "Welcome to Advanced Physics," Professor Zelthrin announced. "I expect excellence from each of you. This course will challenge your understanding of fundamental forces, quantum mechanics, and applied field theory." The lecture began. Professor Zelthrin spoke rapidly, covering material that assumed significant background knowledge. Lily found herself struggling to keep up. The terminology was standard across the galaxy, but the professor's examples referenced physics concepts from dozens of different worlds. Beside her, Torvik made no effort to pay attention. Instead, he continued his quiet commentary. "I have broken smaller creatures than you," he whispered. "In training exercises. In combat simulations. Sometimes just for entertainment." Lily's jaw tightened, but she kept taking notes. "The instructors always punish me, of course," Torvik continued. "But the punishment is worth it. There is something satisfying about hearing the weak ones cry. Professor Zelthrin was explaining a complex equation on the display board. The rest of the class was focused on copying the formulas. No one was watching Torvik except Lily. I think I will enjoy having you in this class, Torvik said. Every day I can remind you of your place. Every day you can remember that your dangerous world means nothing here. You are prey human. You have always been prey. Lily set down her stylus. She turned to face Torvik directly for the first time. Her expression was calm, almost blank. Are you finished? She asked. Torvik's smile widened. No. I am just beginning. Then please continue, Lily said. But do it quietly. I'm trying to learn. She turned back to her notes. For a moment Torvik seemed surprised. Then his surprise turned to anger. His armor plates shifted, a sign of agitation among Krelians. His four hands clenched into fists. But Professor Zelthrin was still lecturing, and even Torvik wasn't bold enough to cause a disruption during the first class. He settled back into his seat, his multiple eyes fixed on the side of Lily's head. The lecture continued for another 40 minutes. Lily absorbed as much as she could, flagging sections she would need to review later. The material was challenging, but she had not come all the way from Earth to fail. When Professor Zelthrin finally dismissed the class, students began packing their belongings. Lily organized her notes carefully, taking her time. She was aware of Torvik's presence beside her, aware of his eyes tracking her every movement. This is not over, human, Torvik said as he stood. Today was just words. Tomorrow I will show you what happens to fragile things in my presence. He walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing through the emptying classroom. Lily finished packing her bag. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. She had dealt with bullies before back on Earth. The species might be different, but the behavior was the same. She just hoped it wouldn't come to violence. But something in Torvik's eyes told her that hope was foolish. The next class session began like the previous one. Lily arrived early and took the same seat in the middle row. She had spent the previous evening reviewing the lecture materials and preparing for the lab exercise Professor Zelthrin had mentioned. Today they would be working with gravitational field generators, delicate equipment that required precision and careful calibration. Torvik entered exactly 3 minutes before class started. He made his way directly to the seat beside Lily, just as he had done before. This time his presence felt more aggressive. His armor plates were darker, shifted into a configuration that Lily's research told her indicated hostile intent among Krelians. Good morning, human, Torvik said. His voice carried across the quiet classroom. Several students turned to look. I hope you slept well. I hope you enjoyed what might be your last peaceful night at this academy. Lily ignored him. She pulled up the lab instructions on her interface and began reading through the safety protocols. Professor Zelthrin entered and immediately began distributing equipment. Each student received a compact gravitational field generator, a set of calibration tools, and a data collection module. The assignment was to create a stable microgravity field and measure its properties. Work carefully, Professor Zelthrin instructed. These generators are expensive and sensitive. Any damage will be deducted from your stipend. Lily activated her generator and began the calibration sequence. The device hummed softly, projecting a faint shimmer in the air above her desk. She adjusted the field strength according to the specifications, her movements careful and deliberate. Torvik made no attempt to start his own assignment. Instead he watched Lily work. His primary eyes tracked her hands as she manipulated the controls. His secondary eyes scanned the rest of the classroom, checking to see who was paying attention. Professor Zelthrin was occupied at the front of the room, helping a Tholine student whose generator had malfunctioned. The teaching assistants were busy with their own tasks. Most students were focused on their equipment. Torvik reached across with one of his lower arms. His movement was sudden but deliberate. He swept his taloned hand across Lily's desk, knocking her generator onto the floor. The device hit the ground with a sharp crack. The gravitational field collapsed and several components scattered across the tiles. The humming stopped. Lily looked down at her broken equipment. Then she looked at Torvik. Oops, Torvik said. His mandibles spread in that distinctive Krelian smile. How clumsy of me. I suppose you will have to pay for that. Around them, several students had noticed. They exchanged glances but said nothing. This was Torvik's pattern. He caused problems and others looked away. Lily took a slow breath. She unbuckled her safety harness and knelt down to gather the scattered pieces. The generator's casing was cracked, and one of the field emitters had snapped completely. It would take hours to repair if repair was even possible. She collected the components methodically, placing them back on her desk. Then she accessed the equipment catalog on her interface and requested a replacement generator. The system informed her that a replacement would be delivered in approximately 30 minutes. The cost would indeed be deducted from her stipend. Torvik watched all of this with obvious satisfaction. When Lily sat back down and began reviewing the lab instructions again, clearly planning to continue once the replacement arrived, his satisfaction turned to irritation. "You should be angry," he said. "You should be crying. You should be running to the professor to tell him what I did." Lily highlighted a section of the instructions and made a note in her file. "Instead you sit there like nothing happened," Torvik continued. His voice was getting louder. "Like you are too stupid to understand that you have been disrespected. Is this how humans respond to aggression? With pathetic acceptance." Still Lily said nothing. She opened a simulation program and began practicing the calibration sequence virtually while she waited for her replacement equipment. Torvik's armor plates shifted again. The color darkened further, almost black now. His four hands clenched and unclenched. Among Krelians this was a warning sign. It meant violence was imminent. But Lily had no way of knowing that. Earth's information about Krelian body language was limited. "Look at me when I speak to you," Torvik demanded. Lily continued working on her simulation. Torvik stood up. His massive frame towered over the desk. Other students were definitely watching now, but still no one intervened. Professor Zelthrin was on the far side of the classroom, his back turned as he demonstrated something on the main display. "I said look at me," Torvik repeated. He reached down with his upper right arm. His taloned hand grabbed Lily's shoulder and spun her chair around forcefully. The movement was violent enough that her interface stylus fell from her hand. Lily found herself facing Torvik directly. He leaned down, bringing his face close to hers. His breath washed over her, hot and sulfurous. "There," he said. "Now you will learn what happens to prey that forgets its place." What happened next occurred so quickly that most students missed the beginning. They only saw the result. Torvik drew back his upper left arm. His taloned hand was positioned like a blade, fingers extended and pressed together. It was a striking technique used in Krelian combat training, designed to maximize the cutting power of their natural weapons. He swung at Lily's face with significant force. Among most species in the galaxy, such a blow would cause severe injury. Broken bones at minimum. Possibly death if it struck the wrong area. The taloned hand connected with Lily's cheek with a sound like meat hitting stone. Her head snapped to the side from the impact. A thin spray of blood droplets scattered through the air. The classroom went absolutely silent. Lily's head stayed turned for a moment, her hair falling across her face. Torvik straightened up, his mandibles spread wide in triumph. He had finally gotten the reaction he wanted. The human would collapse now. She would cry. She would bleed and whimper and show her true weakness. But Lily didn't collapse. Slowly, very slowly, she turned her head back to face forward. Blood ran from a cut on her cheekbone where one of Torvik's talons had sliced through the skin. Her lip was split, a thin line of red running down to her chin. But her eyes were clear, focused, and completely terrifyingly calm. She reached up with one hand and touched her fingers to the blood on her face. She looked at the red staining her fingertips. Then she looked up at Torvik. "That was a mistake," she said quietly. Torvik's triumph faltered. Something in her voice, in her expression, sent a warning through his nervous system. An instinct from deep in his evolutionary past, a survival mechanism that predated civilization. This prey was not prey. But the realization came too late. Lily stood up from her chair. She was small compared to Torvik, barely reaching the middle of his chest. But the way she moved, the way she shifted her weight and positioned her feet, spoke of training and experience that had nothing to do with size. 10 seconds, she said. "That's all you get." Torvik opened his mouth to respond. He never got the chance. Lily's fist moved before Torvik could process her words. It wasn't a wild swing or a clumsy attempt at retaliation. It was precise, calculated, and devastatingly fast. Her knuckles connected with the underside of Torvik's lower mandible with a crack that echoed through the classroom. The Krelian's head snapped backward, and for the first time in his life, Torvik felt his natural armor give way under impact. The pain was immediate and shocking. Krelian armor plates were designed to withstand significant force. They had evolved over millions of years to protect against the predators of their homeworld. But those predators had never encountered bone density like human bone density. They had never faced a species that evolved throwing rocks hard enough to kill, that developed closed fists specifically for combat. Torvik staggered backward, all four arms reaching for his face. But Lily was already moving. She stepped forward into his space, inside his reach where his longer arms became a disadvantage. Her left hand shot out and grabbed one of his upper arms, using it for leverage as she drove her knee upward into his midsection. The softer tissue between his armor plates compressed under the strike. Air rushed from Torvik's lungs in a wheeze. His secondary eyes went wide with shock. On Earth, human children learned to fight on playgrounds. They learned where the weak points were, where a hit would do the most damage. Lily had grown up in the industrial zones of New Detroit, where conflict was settled quickly and brutally. She knew exactly where to strike. Her right fist came up in an uppercut that caught Torvik's central breathing passage. The cartilage there crumpled. His wheezing became a strangled gurgle. 3 seconds had passed. Torvik swung wildly with his lower right arm, trying to create distance. His talons would have disemboweled most species. But Lily had already moved. She ducked under the swing, feeling the displaced air ruffle her hair. Her hand shot out and caught his wrist as it passed over her head. What happened next was pure physics. Leverage, momentum, and the exploitation of Torvik's own weight. Lily twisted her body, using techniques that had been developed over thousands of years of human warfare. She pulled while stepping backward and to the side. Torvik's massive body, already off balance from his missed swing, went crashing forward. He tried to catch himself with his other arms, but Lily maintained her grip on his wrist, controlling his fall. He hit the floor face first. The impact was enormous. His forward armor plates cracked against the reinforced flooring. The sound was like stone splitting. 5 seconds. Students were screaming now. Some were scrambling away from the fight. Others stood frozen in shock. At the front of the classroom, Professor Zelthrin turned around, his crystalline features reflecting pure disbelief at the scene unfolding. "Stop this immediately," the professor shouted, rushing forward. But Lily wasn't finished. She dropped down, driving her knee into the back of Torvik's neck, pinning him to the ground. His armor plates there were thinner, designed for flexibility rather than protection. The pressure on his spine sent waves of pain through his entire body. Torvik tried to push himself up with his forearms, his superior strength finally coming into play. He started to rise despite Lily's weight on his back. She adjusted. Her hands found the gaps in his armor at his shoulder joints. Her thumbs pressed into nerve clusters that existed in nearly identical locations across dozens of species. Torvik's left side went partially numb, his arms weakening. With her right hand, Lily grabbed one of his sensory stalks, the delicate appendages that extended from the sides of his head. She pulled, not enough to tear it free, but enough to send blinding pain through his skull. 7 seconds. Torvik thrashed beneath her, his movements becoming more desperate and less controlled. His voice, when he managed to make sounds, was high-pitched and panicked. The confident bully from moments before had vanished completely. Lily released the sensory stalk and instead drove her elbow down into the side of Torvik's head. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Each impact was controlled, directed at the thinner armor plates near his auditory organs. The plates fractured. Then they shattered. Purple blood began seeping from the cracks. Professor Zelthrin was almost there, reaching out to pull Lily away. But she moved first. She stood up suddenly, releasing Torvik from the pin. The Krelian tried to rise, disoriented and bleeding. He made it to his hands and knees. Lily's boot caught him in the side of his head. The kick had her full body weight behind it, amplified by technique and the momentum of her spin. It was the kind of strike that took years to master, the kind that required perfect timing and balance. Torvik's head bounced off the floor. His remaining intact armor plates cracked. His mandibles, already damaged from the first punch, shattered completely. Fragments of chitin scattered across the tiles, mixed with purple blood and clear fluid from his damaged sensory organs. He collapsed completely, his body going limp. His breathing was shallow and ragged. His eyes, all 6 of them, were unfocused and rolling. 10 seconds. Lily stepped back from Torvik's unconscious form. Her chest was rising and falling steadily, her breathing controlled despite the exertion. Blood from her split lip dripped onto her uniform. Her knuckles were scraped and bleeding, the skin torn from impacts against Krelian armor. But she was standing. She was conscious. She was in control. The classroom was in chaos. Students were pressed against the walls as far from the scene as possible. Some were still screaming. Others were speaking rapidly into their communication devices, calling for security and medical assistance. Professor Zelthrin stood frozen 3 meters away, his crystalline hand still extended as if to intervene. His expression was one of complete shock. In 30 years of teaching, he had never witnessed violence like this in his classroom. Lily looked down at Torvik's broken form. Then she looked at her bleeding knuckles. She flexed her fingers experimentally. Nothing felt broken, though everything would be bruised later. She walked back to her desk, stepping over scattered pieces of equipment that had been knocked aside during the fight. She sat down in her chair and pulled up her interface. The simulation program was still running. She had been practicing gravitational field calibration when Torvik had interrupted her. She resumed her work. Around her, students stared in absolute silence. No one moved. No one spoke. They simply watched as the small human girl, blood still running down her chin, continued her assignment as if nothing had happened. In the doorway, station security personnel appeared, their weapons drawn. They saw Torvik's unconscious body, saw the purple blood spreading across the floor, saw the shattered armor plates and broken mandibles. Then they saw Lily calmly working at her desk. One of the security officers spoke into his communicator. Medical emergency in academic wing, section 7. One student down, severe injuries. Requesting immediate medical response. Another officer approached Lily slowly, his weapon lowered but ready. "Miss, I need you to step away from the desk and come with us." Lily saved her work and closed her interface. She stood up and held out her hands, wrists together, ready to be restrained if necessary. "Of course," she said politely. "But you should know he struck me first. The classroom cameras will show that." The security office was cold and sterile. Lily sat in a metal chair with her hands resting on a smooth table. A medical technician had cleaned the cut on her cheek and bandaged her knuckles, but no one had spoken to her beyond basic questions. Her name. Her student identification number. Her species of origin. 2 security officers stood by the door. A third sat across from her, a Drachnian with blue-scaled skin and intelligent yellow eyes. His name badge read Chief Morvek. "Do you understand why you are here?" Chief Morvek asked. "Yes," Lily said. "I was involved in a physical altercation during class." "You put another student in the medical bay with life-threatening injuries," Morvek corrected. "His face is destroyed. His mandibles are shattered. He has severe trauma to his sensory organs and possible spinal damage. The medical team is preparing him for emergency reconstructive surgery." Lily nodded slowly. "He struck me first. I defended myself." "We will review that claim," Morvek said. He activated a holographic display above the table. "The classroom has multiple recording devices. We have footage from 6 different angles." The hologram flickered to life, showing the physics classroom from a high corner view. Lily could see herself at her desk, working on her simulation. Torvik was beside her, clearly speaking though the recording had no audio. The footage continued. Torvik stood up. He grabbed Lily's shoulder and spun her chair around. He drew back his arm and struck her across the face. Even in the hologram, the violence of the blow was obvious. Lily's head snapped to the side. Blood droplets were visible in the air. Then came her response. Morvek watched in silence as the hologram showed the entire fight. 10 seconds of brutal, precise violence. Every strike was visible. Every movement was captured from multiple angles. When the recording ended, Morvek leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a long moment. "The footage supports your claim," he finally said. "Torvik initiated physical violence. Your response falls under Academy self-defense protocols. Does that mean I can return to class?" Lily asked. Morvek's eyes narrowed. "You nearly killed another student in 10 seconds. You showed no hesitation, no mercy. Those were not the actions of someone simply defending themselves. Those were the actions of someone trained in combat." "I grew up on Earth," Lily said simply. "Everyone there learns to defend themselves. Earth is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld," Morvek said. "I am aware. But classification refers to environmental dangers. Hostile wildlife. Extreme weather. Geological instability. It does not explain what you did to Torvik." Lily met his gaze steadily. "The environment shapes the species. Earth is dangerous, so humans learn to survive danger. That includes defending ourselves against threats." Morvek studied her for another moment. Then he deactivated the hologram. "You are free to go. However, I am flagging this incident in your file. If there is another violent encounter, your enrollment will be reviewed regardless of circumstances." "I understand," Lily said. She stood up carefully, her body already beginning to ache from the fight. "One more thing," Morvek said as she reached the door. "What you did to Torvik will have consequences. Word is already spreading through the station. Many students are frightened of you now. I didn't come here to frighten anyone, Lily said quietly. I came here to learn. She left the security office and made her way back to the dormitory wing. The corridors were crowded with students moving between classes, but something had changed. As Lily walked, conversations stopped. Students moved out of her path, pressing themselves against the walls to maintain distance. Some stared at her with open fear. Others with curiosity. A few with something that might have been respect. Lily kept her eyes forward and walked quickly to her quarters. Meanwhile, in the medical bay 3 levels below, Torvik lay unconscious on a surgical platform. Around him, a team of doctors worked urgently to stabilize his injuries. The lead surgeon was a Vaxian named Dr. Helan. His crystalline hands moved with practiced precision as he examined the damage. The facial structure is catastrophically compromised, he told his team. Both mandibles are shattered beyond simple repair. We will need complete reconstructive grafts. What about his sensory organs? A nurse asked. 3 are damaged beyond recovery. We will need to install artificial replacements. Dr. Helan paused his work and looked down at Torvik's unconscious face. In 20 years of practice, I have never seen injuries like this from a classroom fight. What species did this? A human, the nurse said quietly. Dr. Helian's crystalline features reflected surprise. Impossible. Humans are small. Physically weak compared to most galactic species. The security footage is clear, the nurse insisted. A human female. First-year student. She did this in approximately 10 seconds. Dr. Helian said nothing more. He returned to his work, but his movements were slower now, more thoughtful. In the dormitories, news of the fight spread like radiation. Students gathered in common areas, sharing what they had heard. Most of the information was exaggerated or incorrect, but the core facts remained consistent. A human had destroyed a Krelian in single combat. The fight had lasted only seconds. Torvik was in surgery and might never fully recover. A group of students sat in one of the study lounges, their tablets and holographic displays open. They were researching, pulling up every piece of information available about Earth and its inhabitants. Class 12 Deathworld, a Tholene student read aloud. Gravity 1.0 standard. Atmospheric pressure 14.7 per square unit. Native life forms include thousands of apex predator species. That explains the environment, another student said. But how does that create what we saw today? A Minoran, small and covered in soft feathers, pulled up a biological analysis. Human skeletal structure is incredibly dense. Their bones are reinforced with calcium and other minerals. They evolved this way to survive their gravity and to withstand impacts from hunting and fighting. What about their muscles? Someone asked. Efficient for endurance, the Minoran continued reading. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the target collapsed from exhaustion. Their cardiovascular system is designed for sustained output. That doesn't explain the speed, the Tholan argued. She moved so fast. The precision of each strike. A Zentari student, tall and thin with gray skin, spoke up quietly. My academic advisor visited Earth once. He told me that human young engage in something called play fighting. From a very early age, they learn combat as a form of recreation and social bonding. The group fell silent, absorbing this information. They teach their children to fight? The Tholan asked. For fun. Apparently, the Zentari confirmed. And on Earth there are formal combat systems. Hundreds of them. Thousands of years of accumulated knowledge about how to hurt and kill efficiently. Another student pulled up a text file, a report from a xenoanthropologist. It says here that humans have been in continuous warfare throughout their entire recorded history. Every generation has experienced armed conflict. They have developed weapons, tactics, and hand-to-hand combat systems that have been refined through constant use. They are a warrior species, someone whispered. No, the Minoran corrected. They are a survival species. Everything about them is designed to survive. Their bone density, their pain tolerance, their ability to heal from injuries, their capacity for violence. It all serves one purpose. To ensure they continue existing in an environment that is constantly trying to kill them. 3 days passed before Lily returned to advanced physics. The Academy administration had cleared her of wrongdoing, but Professor Zelthrin had requested she wait until the classroom environment settled. During those 3 days, Torvik underwent 2 surgeries. The medical reports indicated he would survive, but his face would never be the same. Reconstructive grafts could repair the structure, but the damage was too severe for complete restoration. When Lily entered the classroom on the fourth day, every conversation stopped. 30 pairs of eyes turned to watch her walk to her seat. The middle row where she usually sat was completely empty. No one had chosen those desks. She sat down and activated her interface, pulling up the assignments she had missed. Around her, students remained silent. The usual pre-class chatter was absent. Professor Zelthrin entered precisely on time. His crystalline features were difficult to read, but his voice carried tension when he spoke. "Before we begin today's lecture, there is a matter we must address," he said. He looked directly at Lily. "The incident from 3 days ago has created significant disruption to this class. Many students have expressed concern about safety. Some have requested transfers to other sections." Lily met his gaze but said nothing. "However," Professor Zelthrin continued, "the administration has determined that the incident was self-defense. No disciplinary action will be taken against Miss Wade. She has every right to continue her education here." A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "That being said," the professor went on, "I believe we have an opportunity to learn something valuable. Miss Wade, would you be willing to address the class? To help your fellow students understand what happened and why?" Lily hesitated. Public speaking was not something she enjoyed. But she could see the fear in the eyes of her classmates. She could feel the tension in the room. "Yes," she said quietly. "I can do that." She stood up and walked to the front of the classroom. 30 students watched her approach. Some leaned back in their seats as she passed, unconsciously trying to create more distance. Lily stood beside Professor Zelthrin and faced the class. For a moment she simply looked at them. So many different species. So many different worlds. And all of them were afraid of her now. "My name is Lily Wade," she began. "I come from Earth, which is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. Most of you probably know that already. What you might not know is what that classification really means." She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth from orbit. The blue and green planet rotated slowly, clouds swirling across the surface. "Earth looks beautiful from space," Lily said. "But the surface is one of the most hostile environments in the known galaxy. Our gravity is higher than standard. Our atmospheric pressure is higher. Our weather systems are violent and unpredictable. We have hurricanes that can level entire cities. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Volcanoes that block out the sun." The hologram shifted to show various natural disasters. Students watched in silence. "But the environment is just part of it," Lily continued. "Earth is also home to thousands of apex predator species. Animals that evolved specifically to hunt and kill. We have land predators that can run faster than most species in this room. We have ocean predators with jaws strong enough to bite through metal. We have flying predators with talons that can pierce armor." A Minoran student raised a delicate hand. "How do humans survive in such conditions?" "We adapted," Lily said simply. "Humans are not the strongest species on Earth. We are not the fastest. We are not the most armored. But we survived because we evolved specific advantages." She pulled up a biological diagram of a human skeleton. "Our bones are incredibly dense compared to most galactic species. This density serves two purposes. First, it helps us function in Earth's higher gravity. Second, it makes our skeletal structure much harder to break. When I hit Torvik, the force was generated by muscles designed to throw objects hard enough to kill prey from a distance. My fist was backed by bones that evolved to withstand impacts." The diagram shifted to show human musculature. "Humans are endurance specialists," Lily explained. "On Earth, we hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can run for hours. We can fight for extended periods. Our cardiovascular system is designed for sustained output that would exhaust most species." A Zentari student spoke up. "But the speed, the precision, that is not just biology." "You are correct," Lily acknowledged. "What you saw was also the result of training. On Earth, humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We have developed thousands of combat systems over thousands of years. Children learn basic self-defense as part of growing up. Some, like me, receive more extensive training." She paused, looking down at her bandaged knuckles. "I grew up in the industrial zones of New Detroit," she said. "It is not a safe place. Violence is common. I learned to fight when I was 6 years old because I needed to protect myself on the way to school. By the time I was 12, I had trained in 3 different martial arts systems. By 16, I had been in more real fights than I can count." The classroom was absolutely silent now. Students were not just listening. They were absorbing, understanding. Torvik made assumptions about me based on my size, Lily said. He assumed that because I am small, I am weak. He assumed that because I did not respond to his verbal threats, I was afraid. He assumed that he could strike me without consequences. She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many students as she could. Those assumptions were wrong. And when he attacked me, my training took over. Everything I did was automatic. Reflexive. I did not think about the strikes. I did not calculate the damage. I simply responded to a threat the way I was taught to respond. A long silence followed. Then Professor Zelthrin spoke. Do you regret your actions, Miss Wade? Lily considered the question carefully. I regret that violence was necessary. I regret that Torvik was injured so severely. But I do not regret defending myself. On Earth we have a saying. Never start a fight, but always finish it. Torvik started the fight. I finished it. A Tholon student in the front row raised a tentacle. Are all humans like you? Are all of you capable of such violence? Yes and no, Lily answered. All humans have the biological capacity for violence. It is part of our evolution. But not all humans train for combat. Not all humans grow up in dangerous environments. Some live peaceful lives and never need to use these abilities. But the potential is always there. It has to be. Because Earth never stops being dangerous. She walked back to the holographic display of Earth. I did not come to Galactic Academy to fight, she said firmly. I came here to learn. To study physics and engineering. To build bridges between Earth and the galactic community. To prove that humans can contribute something valuable beyond our capacity for violence. She turned off the holographic display. But I will not allow myself to be victimized. I will not accept bullying or abuse. And if someone attacks me again, I will defend myself again. That is not a threat. It is simply a fact. I hope everyone in this room understands that now. She returned to her seat. The walk felt longer than before, but this time the students were not looking at her with fear. There was still caution in their eyes, still wariness. But there was also something else. Understanding. And perhaps the beginning of respect. Professor Zelthrin cleared his throat. Thank you, Miss Wade. That was enlightening. He activated the main display board. Now, let us return to our regularly scheduled lecture. Today we will be discussing quantum entanglement and its applications in faster-than-light communication. The class settled into their normal routine. Students pulled up their interfaces and began taking notes. The tension in the room had not completely disappeared, but it had lessened significantly. During the lecture, Lily noticed something. The seats around her were no longer empty. A Minoran student had moved to the desk beside her. A Zentari sat one row back. They did not speak to her, but their presence was significant. They were no longer afraid to sit near the human. When class ended, several students approached Lily as she packed her belongings. A small group formed around her desk. Miss Wade, the Minoran said hesitantly. My name is Prill. I wanted to say that I understand better now. What happened with Torvik? Why you responded as you did. Thank you, Lily said. A Drachnian student stepped forward. I am Ves. I have a question if you do not mind. Go ahead, Lily said. You mentioned training in combat systems, Ves said. Would you be willing to teach some of us basic self-defense? There are students here who come from peaceful worlds. We have no experience with violence. Perhaps learning from a human would be valuable. Lily considered this. It was not a request she had expected. I would need to get permission from the academy, she said slowly. But yes, I would be willing to teach basic self-defense. As long as everyone understands that the goal is protection, not aggression. Several students nodded enthusiastically. As the group dispersed and students left for their next classes, Lily remained at her desk for a moment. She looked around the empty classroom, thinking about everything that had happened. She had come to Galactic Academy to learn and to build bridges. The incident with Torvik had threatened to destroy that goal. But perhaps, in a strange way, it had actually helped. Her classmates now understood that humans were not weak. They understood that Deathworld evolution meant more than just surviving harsh environments. It meant becoming dangerous enough to thrive in those environments. But they also understood that Lily was here for peaceful purposes. That violence was not her first choice. That she preferred learning and cooperation over conflict. It was a beginning. Not the beginning she had hoped for, but a beginning nonetheless. Lily gathered her belongings and left the classroom. In the corridor outside, students no longer pressed themselves against the walls when she passed. Some even nodded in greeting. She had earned their respect. Not through kindness or brilliance, but through strength and honesty. On Earth there was another saying. Walk softly but carry a big stick. Lily Wade walked softly through the halls of Galactic Academy. But everyone now knew about the metaphorical stick she carried. And that, perhaps, was enough.